So we are up to the letter Nun. As always, with any letters, we always ask ourselves, again, with each letter, we have two issues. One is, what is the correct shape of the letter? And, with that, certain things are lechatchila, certain things are ma'akev b'diavad. And the second issue is which letter it could become similar to. That's always what we need to ask ourselves and how to watch out for that. So by Nun, which letter is there a concern that it might end up looking like? Anybody have a suggestion? What could a Nun end up like?
Gimel.
Gimel possibly, right? If you get the bottom wrong, what else could it end up like?
Kaf. Ace.
Above, yeah.
Yeah, chaf. A chaf it could end up, possibly even a bet. Okay, so we'll see how all of that is dealt with. So says here, I'm reading from the Mishnah Berurah with the Os v'Hadar explanations. He says, Ot nun kfufa, yaseh rosha kmo rosh hazayin, u'shlosha tagin alea. Okay, so this is the Ashkenazi way of doing it. We'll see Sephardi do it differently. But again, the zayin is composed of, this is actually not a good picture of the zayin. Let me show you a better picture of it. Yeah, here we go. Again, the Sephardi we'll see is a bit different, but the Ashkenazi version, this part is done like a zayin. You see that it's squared on top, and the leg coming down is from the middle, as opposed to a vav, which comes down from the side. And it has the three tagim on top. Why? Because this is shatnez getz. So zayin is in the shatnez getz. So it has the three tagim on top. So again, according to Ashkenazi spelling, this part of the nun is done like a zayin. Okay. Continuing here. Okay. And he says, "V'lo yoter rachav mirosh hazayin, v'lo tehave doma lebet im yeh rachav me'at yoter mirosh hazayin." In other words, if you make it too long, like here, you can't make the top of it too long. If you make it longer than the head of a zayin, it couldn't end up looking here. You see, this is a bit similar to a bet. Okay, so that's no good. ומטעם זה יעשה גם כן מושבה למטה משוך לצד שמאל היטב יותר מן הראש, כדי שלא תידמה לבית או לכף. Okay, again, the concern is that it will end up looking like a bet or a kaf. So the way to avoid that is that you make the bottom part of the nun a bit longer on the bottom to the left than the top part. Because again, a bet and a kaf are even on the left side. But the nun, you want to extend it a little bit longer so that, that's the distinction. וצווארו הנמשך מאמצע ראשו יהיה לכתחילה קצת עד וארוך קצת ומוטה לצד ימין כדי להסמיך אות אצל ראשו. Okay, so the tzavar, which is this part, okay, the neck, sort of to speak, going down from the head to the bottom, should be not too thin, it should be a bit thicker, and it should be diagonal going to the right side, so that you'll be able to pull the bottom part to the left a bit longer without, creating too much of a distance that you won't be able to put another letter next to it. Okay? Now the big question is as follows. He says, אם עשה הנון כפופה למעלה צורת ו', דהיינו שמשך הצוואר מקצה ראשו הניח הפרי מגדים בצריך עיון. In other words, let's say I made it instead of a zayin, I made it like a vav. In other words, that the neck, instead of coming from the middle of the head, which is like a zayin, it comes from the right side of the head like this. So the Mishnah Berurah says the pri megadim hiniach b'tzarich iyun, whether this is kosher or not. And he says, ועל כל פנים נראית פשוט דאף לדעת הפרי מגדים, מהני בזה תיקון אפילו בתפילין ומזוזות, דהיינו שיגרור תחילה קצת מראשו לצד שמאל ולא הרבה, כדי שישאר עדיין תמונת נון עליו, ואחר כך יוסיף עליו דיו לצד ימין לעשותו כמו ראש הזין. ולא מועיל בהוספת דיו מצד ימין, דאם כן יהיה ראשו רחב מראש הזין, ואין לעשות כן כנ"ל אין ברכה. So he says, even according to the pri megadim, you can fix it, and it's not a problem of shelo kesidran. Why? Because it still looks like a nun. So how do you fix it? So he says, first you scrape off a little bit from the left, not too much. If you scrape off too much, you'll cancel it from being a nun, and then you'll have a problem, shelo kesidran. So you scrape off a little bit from the left, and then you add a little bit to the right. So he says, first, and he has a long hero of chut on the Biur Halacha, whether it really passes the shape of the nun or not, and making it like a vav. He brings all the proofs, pro and con, to discuss it. But anyway, even according to the Mishnah Berurah, you can still fix it. In other words, it's still not considered like, it's not the letter at all. It's still read as a nun, even if you made it like a vav. and again, this part like a vav, and therefore you would be able to fix it again by erasing a little bit to the left, adding a little bit to the right, and turning it into a zayin. Now, actually, this is the way the Sfaradim actually do the nun, as you can see in this picture here, that they lechatchila make it like a vav. Okay, so it's very difficult to say that this would actually be pasul, since we see that the minhag of the Sfaradim is to do it this way. The only difference is that the Sfaradim do make the head square. In other words, it's not fully like a vav, because a vav we know is rounded. And one of the differences between the vav and the zayin, besides whether it comes from the middle or from the side, is that the zayin is squared and the vav is rounded. So even the Sfaradim, even though they make the nun like a vav, that the neck is coming from the right side, they do make the top square, not like a vav. Okay, so that's the issue with the nun. Questions on the nun? Okay, so let's go on to the nun sofit, or as it is in the Lashon scheme, nun pshuta. Okay, this is a nun kfufa because it's bent, and the nun sofit is a nun pshuta. So he says here, ot nun pshuta, tor tzurata kmo zayin. So the nun pshuta is definitely like a zayin. Everybody agrees on this. Even the Sfaradim do the nun pshuta like a zayin. In other words, with the leg coming down from the middle. Ushlosha tagin al rasheh. Again, it has the 3 tagin because it's still part of the shatnez getz. Ach shi aruka yoter mizayin. So here, the way to distinguish a nun sofit from a zayin is that you make it longer. In other words, if you were to fold it to turn it into a nun kfufa, it would be able to turn it into a nun. That's how long you need to make the zayin, because we say, the difference between the, like we saw this already also by the chaf, if you remember, that the chaf sofit has to be long enough that if you were to fold, I don't know, bend the bottom part, it would turn into a nun kfufa by a chaf sofit. Same thing by the nun pshutam. If you were to fold the bottom part, it would be turn into a nun. דהיינו, לא פחות מ4 קולמוסין עם גגה. So together with the head, it comes out to a total of 4 קולמוסין. ואם הסעה קצרה, מראים לתינוק דלא חכים ולא טיפש, ואם קרא זין צולה. If you make it too short, then the question is, has it turned into a zayin? And the way to distinguish that, again, anytime we have a question whether it has appeared like another letter, that's when we show it to a child. ואם משך הקו הארוך מקצה ראשו ועשאו כצורת וו ארוכה, פרי מגדים מניח בצריך עיון, אך שהרי האחרונים הסכימו בזה לפסול. Okay, here if you made it like a vav and not like a zayin, here he rules that this is pasul. Okay, in other words, why? Because here this is more severe. As he says here, they say here, and it's possible because here we have a proof that at least by the nun sofit, it's mashma from the Gemara that it has to specifically be like the shape of a zayin and not like the vav, and that's why here he says it's pasul if you turned it like a vav. So Sfaradi version. Here you see the Sfaradim also have it like a they also make it like a zayin. Here in the footnotes, they bring that there was a custom in old Sfaradi Sifrei Torah to do it like this. I don't know if you can see it. It's not exactly like a vav. In other words, the leg starts out from the right side, but then curves to the middle and then goes down in the middle. So it's not exactly like a vav. There was also that custom, but he says that this custom is not followed anymore and everybody does it like this. Okay. Next letter we have is a samech. What is the concern with a samech? What might a samech end up looking like?
Mem sofit.
Mem sofit, exactly. You remember we said how are we distinguishing between a mem sofit and a samech? Anybody remember?
Round and squared.
Very good, right. The mem is supposed to be square and the samech rounded on the bottom. Okay. What he says here. אות סמך תהיה גגה למעלה ארוכה, דהיינו שתהיה גגה שווה לכתחילה. In other words, the top part should be straight. Okay. In other words, even though we'll see on the bottom that it's rounded, on the top, it is supposed to be straight. But they say here, even if you made it fully round, it's also kasher. But the bottom part sort of gets shortened because it has to be round. Okay, in other words, it actually what ends up is that the samich is rounded on three sides, on the upper right-hand side and on the bottom on both sides, but on the left-hand side it's squared according to the Ashkenazi custom. We'll see the Sephardi is a little bit different. Ulemata mishnat tzadim, right? It also needs to be rounded, like they show here in the picture. Vistomota legamri, right? It has to be fully closed. You can't have a break anywhere here in the middle. That's the halacha Moshe Sinai, that a samech has to be fully closed. וגגה למעלה יהיה לכתחילה עובר לחוץ לצד שמאל כשיעור גג הוו. Okay, in other words, on the upper left-hand side, showing here, the upper left-hand side, it needs to go a little bit beyond, like you see here, it's like a little bit like a vav here on the upper left side, and that's the top shape on the top part of the samich. Sephardi version. It's only a slight difference. Yeah, you see here, the Ashkenazi again is rounded both on top and on the bottom on both sides, equally rounded. The Sfaradim have it a little bit different. They have it rounded here, and then they sort of come with a diagonal to the left. Okay, he said that's what they say here. בספרדית למטה בשמאל אינה עגולה, אלא שרגלה השמאלי אינה נמשכת למעלה בשווה, אלא מתקמת מעט לצד ימין קרוב לסופה, עד שפוגעת במושבה בזווית רחבה ונפשה מושבה קצר. In other words, so it's sort of the bottom, the bottommost part is a bit thin, and it's a bit not exactly squared, but it sort of comes to a I don't know, here at the end like this. Both of them have the upper left-hand part extending on a little bit beyond. Go on to the letter ayin. ayin, יהיה אות הראשון כאין יוד ופניה קצת למעלה לכתחילה. So he's talking about here, let's look at the ayin. He's talking about the right-hand side of the ayin, because the ayin you have this, and then you have the bottom part, and then you have this, which we'll see is like a zayin. So this part is like a yud, but it's not a yud which is standing straight up. It's a yud which is panea lemala. In other words, it's sort of leaning, looking upwards. Okay, that's what he means here. Panea קצת למעלה לכתחילה. But they write here, אבל בדיעבד כאשר אף עם פני היוד ישרים. Okay, בדיעבד it would be kasher even if you made it flat. But לכתחילה it should be sort of looking up a little bit. Okay. גופה, okay, that's the bottom part, משוך תחתיה בעמידה קצת. Also, the bottom part also should not be flat, but rather you see it comes down, it's also slanted. Okay, that's what they show here. That it's slanted, in other words, it's not a flat line, but rather it's a bit of a slanted line. Okay, why? But only a little bit. Why? The imam shicha harbe ba'alachson lo yuchal lasmich ot acheret zel ayin im yizdamen. Okay, in other words, if you make it too far, then you won't be able to bring another letter close to it. Okay, like this picture. In other words, again, you want the next letter to be close to this letter. So if you make like some part of the letter going too far, so then on top it will seem quite distant, on the bottom it will be close, so that it won't look good. Okay, ובה תהיה זין עומדת בשווה, ונוגעת בירחה למטה מחצייה, ויעשה על ראש הזין 3 תגים. Okay, so now he's talking about the left leg of the ayin, the left, I don't know what you call it, the left part of the ayin anyway. Then that needs to be like a zayin, which is standing up straight, not slanted. Okay, in other words, it should be like this, straight coming down, and not slanted like in this picture. This is not how it's supposed to be. Lechatchila, it should be coming down straight. Okay. ונוגעת במושב למטה מחצייה. Okay, in other words, where do you touch it? A little bit after the halfway point. In other words, you measure from here to here, and you see the halfway point is, let's say, around here. So then you attach the zayin a little bit beyond that, a little bit past the halfway point towards the left side. Okay, ויעשה על ראש הזין 3 תגים. Again, ayin is the sha'nez gets, it's the ayin. So therefore, here too, you have a 3 tagin here on the zayin part of the letter. Okay.
Regarding the ayin, do we have a difference between Beis Yosef and Ari?
Yeah, we'll soon see that. I just want to finish here.
Okay, sorry.
Yeah, we'll see that one. Oh, between with the Ari.
Yes, between Ari and
not Sfaradi. You're asking about Ari. Ari is generally like Ashkenazi with only a slight difference.
Yes.
Oh, okay. Well, we'll soon check. 1 second. והאין לאל בסוף אות א', לעניין אם נגוע ראשים יותר ממקום דיבוקם. So you shouldn't have the upper parts touching more. In other words, if it like comes out like this leg fully touches the top part, then that lechatchila should be avoided. That, in other words, if we made the right hand or the left hand part just like a flat line without a head which it extends beyond the neck coming down from it, that's also pasul. מאוד ייזהר שלא ייגעו שני הראשים של העין זה בזה, ובדיעבד אם נגעו זה בזה אם נגררה, אלה בסוף ש"ש מה שכתבנו שם. Okay, if I have, let's say, the 2 upper parts, they should not be touching each other. If they do end up touching each other, then there's a machloket whether you can sort of just separate them with a slight erasing. Okay? And they say here, שהאחרונים נחלקו אם יכול להכשירם על ידי גרירה לחוד, או שצריך לגרור כל הראש ולכתבו מחדש. ולדין הכתב במשנה ברורה שאין להקל לחוד, אלא בתפילין ומזוזות שכבר כתב את האות שאחר כך, שאז אינו יכול למחוק כל הראש ולכתבו מחדש, אם יעשה כן נפסול משום שלא כסדרה. So if you're in a Sefer Torah, or you're in a tefillin umzuzot and you haven't yet continued writing, then you should erase the 2 top parts of the ayin and then rewrite them. But if you've already written ahead, so you can't erase them because that would be shelo kesidra, and then you can rely on the lenient opinions that you are allowed to erase a little bit just to separate between them. Again, if it's letters that are touching each other, okay, this is something that I see keeps coming up in the Sofrim Stam WhatsApp rooms. If I have 2 letters that touch each other, but just barely touch each other, in other words, it hasn't altered the shape of the letter, it's just a problem of that it's shelo mukaf kvil, then everybody agrees that you can separate them. Because again, the shape of the letters is clear, so there's no problem of chak tochot or shelo kisidran, and it's just a matter of getting them to be mukaf kvil, so then we pass in that you are allowed to erase just to separate them. And I see from the pictures they send, it's quite common that it happens. You're writing closely, and sometimes the ink spreads a little bit beyond and it just touches. Here, the reason why it's more chamor is because it's not one letter touching another letter, it's parts of the same letter that are touching where it should not be touching. So the question is, does that make it sort of more worse off, that this is not the correct shape of the letter? But some say no, if it's only slightly touching in the shape of the letter is still recognizable, then that's fine. And that's why the Mishnah Berurah is relying on that, at least in Tefillin Mezuzot, where you've continued writing onwards. Let's see here. Kenazi. So that's what we said. We have the Yud diagonal coming down, and the Zayin here on the left side. Sfaradim, you can see here they make the left part not like a zayin, but like a vav. and they also attach it higher up. Okay, they quote here the reason that this is from the Ari. Okay, so I think you're right that they say בשאר הכוונות כתב לעשותה כו', היינו בכתיבת פליד, אולם פשט המנהג בבני ספרד לעשות כן גם בכתיבת ספר תורה. So I think you're right that this would be one of the differences between. Take a look at one more. To verify this.
Ravina, here in the is a table. Sorry, I don't know how easy
Yeah.
this is. The letters there are different according to the Ari, and which is the Aleph that has on the bottom. Sorry.
Yeah.
The Aleph has on the bottom part a little bit of a tail.
Right.
The Vav Ches, it's not to Zayins connected, but to Vav and a Zayin.
Right.
Then that's also on the right side. It's not a Zayin, but it's more like a Kaf or no, sorry, just a second. Yeah, the test is yes, it's the left side is not a Zayin but a Vav.
Mm-hmm.
And then the ayin and the yeah, the ayin also the left side.
Yeah, it's a vav.
It's a vav instead of a zayin.
Right.
And the tzadi sofit is looking in the different direction, the right side of it than the left.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's. I'm trying to find. I had somewhere pictures also of the. Can you send me that? Can you take a picture of that for us? Like a helpful chart. They don't have a, but it makes sense that this would be one of the differences between the Ari, because this is what I said here, that this difference, that this is a Vav rather than a Zayin, as they quote here, it's based on Shara Kavanot. So the Sfardim, and even the Sfaradim, or Ari, that you make it like a Vav, it's a squared Vav, not a rounded Vav. Here they have some interesting cases. He says, let's say, עשה ראשה אחד הפוך, אפילו שניהם הפוכים כזה. In other words, I made it, but the head going in the wrong direction. He says, יש לסמוך בדיעבד להכשירו בשעת הדחק, על ידי תיקון של הוספת דיו לעשותה כזין. You can add a little ink to the left part to make it like a zayin. Or where I had. Let's somewhere else to find it. Let's see one more thing. I think I saw it here on the ayin. Yeah, there's a. I see here in the book of the ספר תורה שנמצא בו טעות. Let's say, I don't think I have it on the Google Drive. But he just has the following case, which could happen. Let's say somebody made the leg and it crosses over beyond here on the bottom. Okay. In other words, let's say it went on beyond here. Okay. So this is also a case. He says that you ask a Tinok. If a Tinok reads it like an ayin, then it's fine. If a Tinok cannot identify what the word is, again, it's not that it would look like another letter. They simply would not know what it is. Then it's puzzle, and you would need to take out a different Sefer Torah or whatever it is you would need to do. Okay, any questions or comments still here?
Nope.
Okay, very good. Shkoch to everyone. Yeah, another pay is a bit more complicated, so we'll leave that for next week.
Thank you so much. I'm sending it in a Chabura group.
Yeah, perfect. Yeah, and then I'll add it to the Google Drive as well. Very good.
It's a nice chart of all the it has, I sent it to you. It's a PDF that has 3 sides: the Ashkenaz, Sfard, and also the Chabad.
Ah, okay, very good.
Very nice.
Thank you so much.
All right, you're welcome. Okay.